Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, Chapter 28. Puranjana becomes a woman in the next life, text 59. Tasmin stram ramaya sprishto Ramamano Shrutashmiti Tatsanga Idrishin Prapto Dasham Papi Asim Prabho Tasmin stram ramaya sprishto Ramamano Shrutashmiti Tatsangad Idrishim Prapto Dasham Papi Asim Prabho Tasmim Stram Ramaya Sprishto Ramamano Shrutashmiti Tatsangad Idrishim Prapto Dasham Papi Asim Prabho. Woman of material desires, you become overly absorbed in sense enjoyment. Because of this, you have forgotten your spiritual life. Due to your material conceptions, you are placed in various miserable conditions. Purport. When a person becomes materially engrossed, he has no capacity to hear about spiritual existence. Forgetfulness of spiritual existence entangles a man more and more in material existence. Such is the result of sinful life. Various bodies are developed with the material ingredients because of different types of sinful activities. King Puranjana assumed the body of a woman, Vidarbhi, as a result of his sinful activities. Bhagavad Gita clearly says, Shtiyo Vaishyas Tatat Shrudra, that such a body is low-born. If one takes shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, he can be elevated to the highest perfection, even though he be low-born. One acquires lower births when one's spiritual intelligence is reduced. Translation again. My dear friend, when you enter such a body along with the woman of material desires, you become overly absorbed in sense enjoyment. Because of this, you have forgotten your spiritual life. Due to your material conceptions, you are placed in various miserable conditions. Om Gyanantimanandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Raghunananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. To live with some understanding that the present has been shaped by the past, and also the present is shaping the future. To see that in fullness requires intelligence and special vision. As Krishna himself explains in Bhagavad Gita, Vamudana anupashyanti pashyanti jnana chakshusha. Those with jnana chakshu, eyes of knowledge, can understand this whole process of taking one material body, abandoning it, and then taking another. Those whose eyes are trained with knowledge can see how the spirit soul is trapped in a material body, seeking to enjoy. But those not trained, those not equipped with knowledge, Krishna says, they can't see it, even though they may try. In other words, people are not as intelligent as they think they are. Therefore, it's so difficult to grasp even the basics about spiritual life. That you are different from the body. Now you'll find many people will say that I don't think I'm just chemicals. There must be something more. So many people will say, yes, I must be kind of spiritual in some kind of way. But they say like that. However, their actions show they have no knowledge of Atma Tattva, the science of the self. So it's one thing to have some intuition, some wishful thinking. Yeah, I must be kind of spiritual. I find in my travels around the world that even in places that are not very religious, materially speaking, most persons say that they're more than just chemicals. There must be something more to me. I must be kind of spiritual in some kind of way. Most people will say that. But they lack the knowledge, and therefore their activities are the same as anyone else. Being trapped in the material conception of life is very deadly. But we've been distracted by the possibilities for momentary sense enjoyment and gratification. And that way it's like driving a car and you take your eyes off the road. So many people are driving with their eyes off the road that becomes the norm. Just like you're not supposed to text while you drive. But for a while, before laws made it illegal, it's illegal here also.
Yes.
People were just texting away while driving. Everyone does it. So similarly, we're driving our life forward, trying to achieve our goals, but we're not looking at the road. The road is all about changing one body after another. Dehanta, Krishna explains in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Acquiring one body and then discarding it. Or as explained elsewhere in Bhagavatam, 7th canto, I believe. The material body embraces the living entity and then leaves the living entity aside. So usually we think of it the other way, that I take a body. But the Bhagavatam also presents it from the opposite point of view. The body takes you and then leaves you aside. Like a spouse or a lover or a partner, whatever you want to call it. There's the embrace and then gone. So simply the body embraces you and then discards you. Or looked at the other way, you take on a body and then discard the body. In either case, it is material nature that's arranging this whole process of taking on bodies and giving them. But we don't know the full extent of nature. We don't know what nature is doing. And because of being engrossed in material activities, we're not able to understand the seriousness of our situation. We're so distracted. So this is what makes for difficulty in presenting the necessity of bhakti to others. They're distracted completely to the extent that they can't understand. Why are you thinking about all these things full time? You're supposed to maybe in special moments start contemplating what is your real self? What is the future after this life? Those are supposed to be special moments. Otherwise, the pressures of everyday life are so overpowering. Economic pressures, political pressures, And then the pressures coming from your own body and mind. You've got a full plate. So this way, you struggle with all these pushings and pressures. That's why Krishna says, Manusasthani indriyani prakriti sthani karshati. You're struggling with the five senses in the mind, and you're struggling in the oppressive material atmosphere. But we don't feel it all the time to be oppressive. We think we've got options. We think we've got viable alternatives. I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll arrange this, I'll get that. Again, our eyes are not on the road. We're distracted and we can't see that what's really going on is just one body after another, according to our merit and our desire. So the intelligent person thinks, what will my next body be? That sounds like a very exotic way of approaching life. Better to just focus on the pleasures and necessities and pressures of the moment. Because everyone is doing that. Are you really meant to be so serious that you are considering, even though you're in your 20s and 30s, you're considering, what will my next body be? Isn't that kind of ruining everything? You should be merry, fancy-free. That's just like saying, let nature's laws act on me. But any four-legged animal can do that. Just romp here and there and pursue bodily demands with no consideration. But this is the kind of society that we live in. And this kind of society is condemned by Srimad Bhagavatam. So you're getting a comprehensive picture of why such a society is condemned. There's no question of fanaticism or negativity without justification. No, Bhagavatam presents the negative with full explanation, as well as the positive with full explanation. Therefore, nothing compares to Srimad Bhagavatam. It gives you the all-around vision of what is happening and what should happen. So, in this particular situation, this is Narada Muni's extended allegory of Paranjana. Narada Muni is teaching King Prachinabartisha by telling him a story. In that way, Narada Muni is sugarcoating the medicine. He's not going to tell the king directly at first that you're in Maya, you're just engrossed in material activities, you're wasting your human form of life. After the extended allegory, Narada Muni will say that. By the way, king, I was talking about you. But to get past the king's defenses, he tells him a whole story, which is actually about the king. So now Narada Muni is saying that this personality, Paranjana, allegorical personality, was so attached to material enjoyment that now in his next life as Vaidarbhi, he has forgotten his spiritual life, and also he's assumed the body of a woman. Now our ladies might be put off by this. King Paranjana assumed the body of a woman, Vaidarbhi, as a result of his sinful activities. And the men, they may think that this purport entitles them to pride and Guarantees their superior position. But you have to understand the context. This Narada Muni is speaking about classical Vedic culture in which men were quite different from the way they are now. They were reliable. They could control their mind and senses. They weren't just like dancing dogs. They had integrity. They were responsible. But that is not the case these days. So often when the ladies hear these kind of purports, they flinch because they know where these guys are at. They've experienced the superior male species. All right, Bhagavad Gita says, Striyo Vaishyas Tata Shudra. Those categories are considered low-born. Besides women, it mentions Vaishyas, merchants, and Shudras, laborers. What is the reality in Kali Yuga? The Shastra says, Kalo Shudra Sambhava. In this age of Kali, everyone is born a Shudra, or laborer qualities, or less. So there's no way that the men can stick out their chests and beat their chests with their fists and proclaim their greatness. Everyone in this age of darkness is considered low-born. And it's quite an honor these days to call someone a Shudra, because a Shudra, labor mentality, is within the Varnashrama system. But what you have today is a situation in which no one is within the Varnashrama system. You have what's called Panchama, fifth class, outside of the Vedic system. So therefore, it's a great honor to call someone a Shudra these days. That means they're within the Vedic system. They serve the Brahmanas, they serve the Kshatriyas, they serve the Vaishyas, who are meant to elevate the fourth class personalities, the Shudras. But there's no elevation going on in society today. There is no Vedic system. So you're dealing with those who are completely outside the system. So in this way you can understand what the context of this verse is. This verse is speaking about classical Vedic sociology, which is not present today. You'll just see perverted glimpses of it. So, everyone today requires Lord Chaitanya's mercy. You're dealing with a civilization that is so far off track. And no one is benefiting from it. Yet people are marching along thinking things will be all right. Things can be better. When they're completely off track. In a real human civilization, you consider, what will my next body be? But that sounds very exotic, doesn't it? If your former friends or family ask, what are you doing? I'm considering what my next body will be. You've gone nuts. Why would you think about that? And you try to explain that I could be kicked out of this body at any moment, so I have to be concerned. Just like someone who's living in a flat or a house, they're renting, and there's no lease. You don't know when the landlord's going to kick you out. So naturally, you'd be concerned. Where will I go if I'm kicked out? I don't want to be on the street. So this body is an accommodation, and we'll be kicked out of it. We don't know when. You know how in the whole Srimad Bhagavatam, the context is Pritchett Maharaj having 7 days to live. So he wanted to know what's the best thing to do to prepare for my death in 7 days. But we don't even know that we have 7 minutes. Yet we have this feeling that my plans will go on, my activities will continue. We can be thrown out any moment. This kind of thinking is what a real human civilization does. But everything that we've been told, all the ways we have been molded, are about anything but facing the reality of changing bodies. We have to hear this over and over and over again, and finally the message starts to penetrate through our ears to our consciousness. I have to give up this body. But when you're in your 20s and 30s, you don't want to think like that. You have hope for your body because the body is full of desires. In other words, when you have a material body, you're seeing the symptom of material desires. The body is produced by desires. Or you could say the material body is a bag of material desires, as well as karmic reactions. So Lord Rishabhdev asked a very important question in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. He asks, since this body is obtained because of karmic reactions from the past life, why would you want to again engage in the kind of lifestyle that produces more sinful reactions? Na sadhu manye yata atmanoyam asanna pikleshada ashadeha. Lord Rishabhdev tells his sons, I don't think this is very intelligent. I don't consider it to be intelligent that you continue, you persist in activities that will just bring you one body after another. And we're so silly we don't see that having a body means suffering until we're right in the suffering and burning from it. You can think of the most successful person you may know of, someone with fame and wealth. But the fact is, at the moment of death, the situation is so painful, it makes all your achievements and acquisitions in life just seem non-existent. Sometimes people say, well, why can't we remember our previous death? That's Krishna's mercy on us. Because if we remembered the terror, we would never be able to pursue our material desires in the next life. But we want to pursue our material desires. So the super soul in the heart, controlling our remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness, arranges that you don't remember your previous death so that you can pursue your program of fulfilling material desires in the next life. We're insistent on trying to satisfy these desires, and we need the help of the super soul, who helps us remember our material desires from one birth to the next. This is how helpless we are. We can't even live material life without help from the super soul. And the converse also works. We can forget our material desires by the arrangement of the super soul in the heart. So the non-devotee wants to remember material desires, and the devotee wants to forget material desires. Often, when ordinary people see that you're forgetting your material desires, they become paranoid. What's become of you? What's happening? You're not the same. They become even very disturbed and hostile because they feel threatened. You're forgetting your material desires. I don't want to forget my material desires. Your presence is making them on edge and feeling very upset because they can see someone's forgetting material desires. No, this cannot happen. We all should suffer the illusion together. I told you, I think, the story as a little kid. My father would put the kids in the car and take us to the perimeter road around the New York International Airport. And other people would be parking their cars also on the perimeter road surrounding the airport. And what you do is, you get out of the car and put your back to the car, to the side of the car, and face the other way because the planes were coming in that way and landing just on the other side of the road. So you would park your car and stand there facing a plane would land every 30 seconds. You know, thunderous sound, and you're supposed to feel pride and accomplishment. Practically, it was like the landing gear of the jets were maybe 2 meters above your head. And so people would just park their cars, line the side of the road with their cars, and just stand and face the incoming airplanes. So I remember my father had us do that. And after 2 minutes, I said, I don't like this. I'm going back inside the car. I remember my father, he got angry. Wait a minute now. If you think there's danger, we're all going to go through it together. That's what a family is for. Don't you start acting smart now. We're in this together. There is no danger, trust me. But if you think there is, we go through it as a family. I never forgot that. Something weird about this. You come into this world alone, and you leave it alone. But in the meantime, you take on all this baggage, all these temporary acquaintances who are telling you what you should be doing. The Bhagavatam gives the example of waves in the ocean, bringing together clumps of seaweed and then separating them. So this is what our family affairs are like. This is what our social networks are like. The seaweed brought together by the waves, and then the same waves pull the seaweed apart. That's the reality. To be a devotee of Krishna begins with understanding how to make the best use of this temporary body. And we need to hear this again and again because the atmosphere is so saturated. The atmosphere of Kali Yuga is so saturated with sensuality that we forget so easily. This is why it's important that we have a daily program of hearing and chanting. Understand how dangerous the atmosphere is. And Bhagavatam is explaining why it's danger. Why it's dangerous. This is not fanaticism. We want all the Krishna followers to tremble with paranoia. What will your next body be? You're getting the world's greatest philosophy. You're discussing what is most essential. we have an enormous task at hand to educate the general population. They can't remember their spiritual necessities because, as the verse today explains, material desires cause you to become overly absorbed in sense enjoyment, and therefore you forget your spiritual life. So you're dealing with billions of people who have forgotten their spiritual life. Some of them are externally religious. They stamp themselves with some creed or belief system. And more people are not even going through the motions of external religion. So it's up to each one of us to consider every day, what is the purpose of my having a human body? What if I have to give up this body sooner than I think? Will my life have been responsible and truly successful? In other words, being a devotee is a jolly experience, and also being a devotee means a lot of soberness. We're not afraid to face the realities. It's a great opportunity to take Srimad Bhagavatam very seriously, to take Krishna's instructions in Bhagavad Gita very seriously. It takes effort, but this is the best work. Put in your effort, and the results are beyond what you could ever conceive of. Some effort is required, though. But to live material life, you've got to put in so much effort and tolerate so many inconveniences and miseries. Why can't we do that for spiritual life? Material life doesn't mean you can do whatever you like. No, you're under the control of your mind and senses. You're under the control of others' mind and senses, others' conceptions of how the world should be. You're doing your little tiny bit, a bit player on a huge stage that's all orchestrated by someone else. So how can there be true freedom of choice when although you have a tiny bit of independence, you're overpowered by material nature? What to speak of being overpowered by social arrangements, social propaganda? Where's the freedom? So our bhakti program is about giving real intelligence so that you can actually act with real freedom. Real freedom simply means, shall I choose Krishna's service or shall I not? Now you might say, well, that sounds like a very little scope, very little amount of choice. Again, consider how tiny we are. Because we are so tiny, infinitesimal, we have a tiny leeway for choice. We can choose to serve Krishna's spiritual energy or serve his material energy. And once you make your choice, you're swept away. We make such a big deal out of our tiny world of choices. To choose this enjoyment instead of that enjoyment. It's like having a remote for a TV in your hands, and you feel so powerful. No, not that one. Oh, what's that? So we think life is like that. Of course, anyone who understands the media system knows It's contrived. And similarly, anyone who understands material life can understand it's contrived. Krishna clearly says it. Krishna's not holding anything back. Krishna explains material existence is a scam. It's meant to embarrass you. It's meant to bewilder you. So Narada Muni is explaining here that when there is overabsorption in sense enjoyment, you forget your spiritual life. And you are placed in various bodies because of your material conceptions. So conceptions are problematic, and everyone has conceptions. I think this, this is what I believe, or this is what I've heard. These are the conclusions I've come to. Whether you recognize it or not, everyone has conceptions. This is what Krishna explains in the 17th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Triveda bhavati shraddha dehi dehinam yogina. Every living entity is coated with different types of faith according to the modes of material nature. Faith means conceptions of life. Those which you think are all your ideas, your theories, your notions, they're all the product of the modes of material nature. The cleansing process of Bhakti Yoga gives you true freedom. As Krishna's part, you're free in service to Krishna. In other words, devotional service is an expression of genuine freedom. You are free to love Krishna. You're his part. So how can we get away from Krishna? So please think about that. I'm free to serve Krishna and develop a loving attitude in that service. That is real human life. And that is natural life. Prahlad Maharaj points out in the 7th canto of Bhagavatam that it's natural to render devotional service to the Supreme Personality Godhead, just as it's natural for a little child to follow the parents. There's no difficulty, normally speaking, for a child to relate to mother. Similarly, Prahlad Maharaj points out, there's no difficulty in the living entity relating to Krishna. It's natural. Yet, Prahlad points out, there's something that does require a lot of complication, extreme effort. What is that? Wrecking your life requires a great endeavor, whereas serving Krishna is so natural. But if you want to destroy yourself and head for a hellish destination, you really got to work at it. We can think of our life before accepting Lord Chaitanya's mercy. We were working in the name of enjoyment. Parties are hard work, you know. But you're bewildered and thinking, oh, I'm enjoying. It requires effort. You have to go out of your way to destroy yourself. And of course, there's employment itself. It's work. Relationships are work. We're speaking materially. People have that expression. You've got to work at relationships. You've got to work at it. Yes. Whether you're partying or having relationships or employment, from the material standpoint, without Krishna, it's all difficulty. It's hard work. So Prahlad Maharaj says this. Establishing your relationship with Krishna is natural. It's organic. It just flows like a child dealing with an affectionate, caring parent. But, Prahlad says, going to hell requires great endeavor. You really got to work at it. You really got to work at shafting yourself, screwing yourself. You really got to work at it. Just some of you could think, what would I do if I'm out of here? Yeah, okay, young guys, young girls. Let's take our friend Simon from the Czech Republic. So he was telling me last night that he goes to university in Swansea, studying sports science. So I asked him, well, why did you come all the way from the Czech Republic to go to school in Swansea? First he tried to brush me off a bit, but I didn't fall for it. He told me it's more prestigious to study in Swansea. That was the first time I ever heard that. So I replied by pointing out, well, in Prague you have the Charles University, very antiquated and all that. And then he told me the real reason. I wanted to get away from my parents. But that's effort. You leave your hometown and go to another country to accomplish your goal of studying while getting away from the parents. That's work, right? But we don't think about it that way because we're so conditioned. We think, these are my objectives. I want to get away from my parents, so therefore, it's not work what I'm doing. It's not an effort. It's just me getting what I want. But no, you have to struggle. Put yourself in a different situation. That takes effort. But because it's selfish, we think it's all right. But the Bhagavatam says, no, you are struggling. It is hard work. To see reality takes qualification. Srimad Bhagavatam is training us to see the reality of material existence and the reality of spiritual existence. By daily hearing this literary incarnation of Krishna, real intelligence starts to develop in us. We start to understand that for my so-called pleasures of material existence, I'm always struggling. What kind of pleasure is it that it always involves a struggle? We start thinking about it. This verse is talking about absorption in sense enjoyment. That takes a struggle. So much anxiety, so much manipulation, trying to influence situations to get what you want for the maximum momentary buzz of happiness. It's all hard work. But in the process of laboring in that way, we lose our intelligence. We lose our ability to discriminate. That's the mercy of Maya. You become bewildered. And you take that bewilderment as a blessing. You take it as good fortune. I never think about anything deep, you know. I'm busy. I've got some good pleasures, some good sensuality lined up. That's what it's all about. If I get too worried, I just have a few drinks, everything's fine. This is the way billions of people are living their life. Of course, there are many people in the world who are just surviving. Their thoughts are just about survival. That is unfortunate, but still, it is not real human life. Human life is not about surviving, nor is it about absorption in sense enjoyment. It's all about what is your next body? How can you get the best possible situation for the future? Which also means you'll get the best possible situation now. So often we think that, why should my life be so future orientated? What's your next body going to be? What your destination will be? Will you go to Krishna or will you not? But you see, Bhakti Yoga is so ingenious that when you act for the best possible future, you also get the best possible present moment. Brilliant, yes? But it's hard for bewildered people to understand that. They'll accuse you, oh, you're just so focused on the future. Next life, you're just neglecting this life. By focusing all your energy on the future, you're losing the ability to improve your present moment. No. By focusing on what will be best for the future in bhakti, you also get the best present moment. So this is how holistic Krishna consciousness is. You don't suffer by being future orientated. Your present moment is also better. Because bhakti is beyond past, present, and future. So that, therefore, by acting for Krishna's pleasure, your future is better, your present moment is better, and your past is better because all your past karmic burdens are taken care of. So this is why so many, even new devotees, feel like a burden is off their back. They feel a sense of freedom for the first time. Freedom doesn't mean now you can just do whatever you like. Freedom means the monkey of karmic reactions is off your back. You're starting to feel that. Because Krishna says, surrender to me, I will take care of your past burden of karma. That is real freedom. So let us consider how we can make this one life successful, and that will influence the past lives and the future life. We just have a short time ahead of us. We're only in this body for such a short amount of time. If we can just sacrifice these few years in devotional service, how glorious your life will be now and in the future. All right, any questions? Yes?
Krishna, thank you, class. I wanted to ask, because life is impermanent and temporary, but it's because time is relative. I often become relaxed on how long I've got in this body, you know. And I felt like if I really knew how impermanent and temporary life was, I would take bhakti more seriously. So is there a practical way I can always be mindful of the temporary nature of life?
As I said, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Every day hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada's purports will pull you up straight every morning. Otherwise, without daily hearing, it's natural to be covered over by the material energy. We're not living in a neutral atmosphere. You're living within the three modes of material nature. These bhakti centers, these Krishna conscious centers, are sanctuaries so that you can get out of the grip of material nature. But it takes daily application. But we're so lazy. If you work a job, you have to daily apply yourself. If you go to school, you have to daily apply yourself. Right, Simon? Even studying sports science, it's not a holiday, right? No. You got to apply yourself. But if we say apply yourself in devotional service, that takes effort. Of course it takes effort. But if someone says, hey Simon, apply yourself to this young lady at your school. Well, that takes effort, right? Immediately your brain has to start plotting. That's work. And you have to go through various overtures, presentations and conversations. And sometimes when I'm on my walks in various cities and where the weather is good and they have these outdoor cafes with the tables and chairs, and especially if it's lunchtime, you see all the office people and corporate executives seated at the tables, and you see the guy and the girl, the lady, and the lady's just talking, 100 kilometers per hour. Just pouring it all out. And the guy is sitting there. You know he doesn't care. He's just thinking, how much of this do I have to go through before we meet up tonight? But the lady's just... Right? Isn't it like that? It's work, right? It's hard work. You can't just grab the girl by her hair and drag her into a cave. You gotta work. Anything else? Yeah. Hare Krishna.
If we're all Shudras, then why does Srila Prabhupada speak so much about the Varnashram system?
Sudra by birth, but you can change your qualities and activities, and therefore your classification changes. In this present age of darkness, persons are born outside of the Vedic system, so they're less than Shudras. But by proper lifestyle, by proper education, proper training, they can change. So you're not condemned to remain as you were when you were born. Your birth circumstances can be corrected through the proper purificatory process. So yes, the Varnashram system is Krishna's personal system for uplifting humanity. It's material, but it's Krishna's material system. Therefore we say, how can human society be successful without the very system that Krishna himself has devised? It's material, it has to deal with the body, but still, it is essential for the creation of a genuine human civilization. Anything else you want to ask about?
In the Bhagavatam,
Oh, you're reading Bhagavatam?
yeah,
Where are you?
King Parikshit receives the age of Kali.
First canto. All right, very good.
There's a lot of emphasis on which families people are born into, and who their parents are, what caste their parents are, things like that. So has it always been as you described, or is it a new system for the age of Kali?
Has what always been?
Have people always been able to change their Varna?
Oh yes,
Okay.
definitely. As you get deeper into the Bhagavatam, you'll see classic examples of that. Parashuram was born in a Brahmana family, but he was a powerful example of a Kshatriya. Vishwamrita Muni was born in a Kshatriya family, but he acted as a Brahmana.